It's no secret that CEOs are paid really well, but in most cases, the vast majority, if not their entire compensation, is paid out in stock. For instance, Sundar Pichai gets $242 million in compensation per year, but only $2 million of that is in cash, or less than 1%. Of course, that's a great cash salary, but nowhere near his total compensation. So, when he is looking to sell, how would he go about selling billions of dollars worth of stock without crashing Alphabet stock? Well, starting off, companies and their founders are well aware of this issue, and this is why they use the process of stock vesting. It's not just CEOs and high-level executives they need to consider. Thousands of engineers and managers can cause just as much damage. Oftentimes, engineers and managers are offered stock bonuses of $10,000 to $20,000. And over several years, these guys generally rack up stock holdings well into six figures. Going back to Google as an example, they have over 98,000 employees, of which most are well-paid managers and engineers. Alphabet's median salary itself is $246,000, so we can assume that most of their employees do get stock compensation. So even if just 10% of their workforce decides to cash out, this could mean billions of dollars of stock reaching the market. And this is where stock vesting comes into play. Stock vesting is basically a restriction to selling stock too quickly. There are two main types of stock vesting, which are time-based vesting and milestone-based vesting. Time-based vesting is the most common type used by companies. Time-based vesting is essentially what it sounds like. Companies set a minimum time requirement before an employee is actually able to sell the stock. And this is also generally contingent on employees still working at the company at the time. For the average employee and management, this is usually just 1 year. However, for CEOs and executives, the time period is generally 4 to 5 years. Companies basically divide the total stock compensation by the vesting time and create what is known as a vesting cliff. This is just a graph that showcases when employees are actually able to sell their stock and how much of it. If one is to resign during this window, they will not get the remainder of the stock, as this will be reclaimed by the company. So whenever you see a CEO's compensation, that is generally what they will realize over the next 4 to 5 years if they stick with the company. And what they are currently realizing is an average of what they were earning the past 4 to 5 years. Moving on, let's take a look at milestone-based vesting. This is essentially the same thing as time-based vesting, but instead of the goal being a time period, it's generally a market cap. For instance, Apple could tell Tim Cook that he can't sell his shares until Apple is worth $2 trillion. And finally, we have hybrid vesting, which is a combination of both time-based vesting and milestone-based vesting. But what is even the purpose of vesting periods? Employees that have been working at a company for several years can still cause damage by selling big volumes. And this is especially a threat when companies are on a downfall. Well, the thing is, the vesting time is more for the company rather than the employees. The vesting time period isn't built to prevent employees from selling shares too early, but rather give companies the time to be able to afford to buy them back. For big companies, the vesting period is not that big of a deal because they already have large cash reserves ready to buy back stock. For instance, Alphabet's net income last year was $34.5 billion. So even if Sundar Pichai were able to sell his entire $240 million compensation every year, which he can't, but even if he could, Alphabet could buy it back for a decimal value of their net income. And this is how companies prevent executives and employees from selling billions of dollars worth of stock and crashing the stock price. Companies simply buy back the stock under the company's name during periods in which many employees are cashing out. And then they turn around and hand the stock to the next CEO or next employee, or even the same person the following year. So vesting takes care of basically 99.9% of the market. But there's still a handful of individuals left to deal with who are founders/founder CEOs. People like Sergey Brin, Larry Page, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Jeff Bezos. The thing is, these guys are founders and they usually care about the well-being of the company very much. So, They only liquidate as much as they need and limit it to well below how much the market can handle and or how much the company can buy back. For instance, Jeff Bezos liquidates $1 billion worth of Amazon stock per year to fund his space company, Blue Origin. And since Amazon is worth over $1 trillion, this is less than 0.1% and doesn't harm the stock price. But yes, at this rate, it would take Jeff Bezos well over 100 years to liquidate his position. A great example of this is Bill Gates. He's been selling off his shares since 1986, at which point he owned 45% of Microsoft, down to 1% today. 1% is still worth over $10 billion today, but currently, Bill Gates is within 10 years of being able to sell off his entire Microsoft holding. Of course, I don't think he was maximizing how much he could sell off every single year, but nonetheless, for most founders, selling their entire stake would mean decades of selling if they want to avoid hurting stock prices. So most founders will never be able to realize their full wealth within their lifetime. But this doesn't really matter, as they can liquidate more than they can spend anyways. That's most founders. There are some loose cannons though that just liquidate their entire stake in a matter of weeks. For instance, Steve Jobs sold his entire 11% stake other than one share in a fit of anger in 1985 after he was fired from his own company. More recently, Uber's co-founder, Travis Kalanick, sold $2.5 billion worth or 90% of his stake in just 6 weeks at the end of 2019. He was also ousted like Steve Jobs quite recently. Anyways, generally, companies place vesting times on stocks in order to grow enough capital to offset employees and executives selling off stock. Founders, on the other hand, can cause serious damage, but they understandably don't intend to except for some unique situations. In such scenarios, it is up to the other large stakeholders to buy up as much as they can to minimize the repercussions of large-scale liquidation. But hey, maybe they should have thought about that before ousting a founder. If you guys thought this video thoroughly explained how companies prevent devaluation from too much liquidation, then make sure to drop a like, and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hardy, and I'll see you guys on the next one.